Great. Okay, we're getting underway. So thanks everyone for coming along. Just a sort of quick webinar today, really to give an overview of the glide time, part of our system, right the way through from sort of recording time, billing time, work in progress, billing time, writing off time, reporting, looking at our Xero integration as well. There could be a few bits in here for those of you that use it already, that perhaps you're not aware of, and of course, a good overview for anyone that uses Glide but doesn't currently use Glide time. So I'll get stuck straight into it. If you have any questions at any time, do just pop them in the chat or the Q&A on Zoom, and we can stop and go through those. I think this obviously sort of probably won't take as long as a sort of full Glide demo, so I think we'll perhaps be looking at sort of half an hour here really to go through everything in full detail. So time for a bit of lunch afterwards. I know we're 2 o'clock today, aren't we? So we're perhaps already had that. Right, let's get stuck straight in then. So the first thing really to talk about is recording time. Of course, this is where it begins. And before I do that, if you're new to Glide or new to Glide time, it is worth highlighting that we can import your work in progress from, I suppose, from anywhere really, because we have an Excel import tool. So you would need to get it out of wherever it is, and then we can import it. That is full detail. So even if it's sort of 500,000 rows of work in progress, we'll have all the descriptions, rates, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, now coming on to talk about, you're using the system, you're recording time, how would you go about doing that? I'll go through these, and then I think we'll just backpedal a little bit just to talk about how do we set up the rates, how do we set the workday patterns, that sort of thing. So firstly, when it comes to recording time, you have 3 places where you might choose to do this. The first one is right on the job card. Now, Glide, of course, is a very job orientated system. So if your team members or yourself are working on a job, there is a huge amount of sense in recording time to that job. It's really going to aid us when it comes to understanding recovery rates in those jobs, etc., down the road. And so you can do that right. Suppose we're here and we're moving our job along, we can click time, or you can do T keyboard shortcut, and you can come in here to record time. So it's going to default to the current date, but you can change the date. If you don't see future dates in here, there is a setting in config, I think config advanced, config settings, to allow future time recordings. It's going to default to the most appropriate rate. And we will, once we've gone through these recording times, we'll go and look at rates, and we'll just talk about the different options we have there. And we're also analyzing because we're recording to a job, we're going to analyze to a stage as well, and it's defaulted to the current stage there. So really our sole job on the pop-up here is to record what we've done, enough of a description to give someone a feel for what we're doing. So working on management accounts perhaps would suffice. It doesn't add a huge amount of detail, does it? But I won't worry about it too much today. Then you pop in the minutes. So Glide does work in minutes. You can put 1. You could put, the maximum number of minutes in a day. That's fine. So sometimes people coming from other systems will be accustomed to working in units, and a unit perhaps equates to 6 minutes or 15 minutes. Of course, you can still do that. You're just going to work it in your head, 15, 30, 45, or whatever it might be. Okay, you don't have to put in start and end time because they are optional. So you just go ahead, click log time, and that has recorded time both to the client and to the job. Okay, so if it's me using the system, if I'm here progressing jobs, making comments, etc., I'd be recording my time whilst I'm here. If I didn't record it there and then, I would most probably forget what I've been doing. But there are other methods that we'll come on to. So that's your first option. Okay, so, and everywhere we see time, we'll also see expense. If you are incurring expenses that need to be recharged onto a client, or at least absorbed within a fee for you to have a true understanding of profitability, you can always record those as well. there's also an Excel import. If you have like 200 Xero subscriptions or something each month, you can just import those in bulk. Okay, let's now jump onto the client card, because the situation will arise where we're doing client work, but it doesn't relate to a job. I mean, I'm all for having loads of workflow systems and tracking everything, but the reality is some things don't lend themselves to a job, some really ad hoc things, or maybe if you're in charge of the client relationship and you meet up for 5 hours and you're talking about everything, you don't really want to sit down and divide that up, although you could. What you do here is on the client card, again, you have time and expense. Again, there's the keyboard shortcuts for those. Just click log time. This is identical to the other one, except for we're not recording time to a job. Instead, here, we are recording our time to a category. So basically, you can set up your categories to be whatever you like. Things like general meetings, general phone calls are perhaps the sort of things we see here, rather than things that would overlap with a workflow system. And they are just acting as an analysis sort of bucket for time to be put in with no sort of job units below them. So again, here, I mean, ad hoc work, I actually think we can have workflow systems for a number of these, but meetings is definitely one that you don't really need a workflow system for. So I'm just going to meeting with client to discuss overall progress, something like that. And let's say that was a 2-hour meeting. Again, we don't need to do start and end time. Now, with both of those pop-ups, with the job card and with the client card pop-up, sorry, lost my train of thought there. You can also use the timer. So imagine we're sat here about to prepare some accounts. We can click play and that will initiate a timer. It doesn't matter actually what screen you press play on. You can press it anywhere. And then what you do is you either press stop, or when you next click log time on either job card or client card, that will stop and it brings that data in. So it'll do the minute start and end time for you. So those methods for recording time are what I would call the record time pop-ups. And they make a lot of sense, but I suspect if we had analysis, we'd probably discover that 90% of time is recorded on the timesheet. And perhaps this reflects the fact that people get to the end of the day or morning or afternoon and they've been really busy, they've recorded no time. And we have 5, 10 or so entries to make here. So this is obviously then the best place to come because you can do them all much quicker. So to have a look at how this works, it will load up column 1, which is called context. So this is asking us either for a client, or this is actually where we can come to record non-client time. So if you do ask your team to account for the entire day, you're able to set up categories much like the client ones, but actually, these are non-client ones. So this is things like holiday, bank holiday, CPD, illness, maternity leave, all that stuff. So in column 1, we're choosing one of those. I'm going to find that client we're on a moment ago. SI is the code, Angel Engineers. Because I have chosen a client, I'm now asked to choose either an active job or a client category. So of course, if you use the pop-ups, you cut out these first 2 columns, but on this screen, we need to confirm precisely where this time is going. We only tend to show completed jobs in here. You can configure it differently to throw them all in, but of course, you don't really, we only show active jobs in here, but you can change your config to throw all jobs in, but that gets mad if you've got all of your completed jobs in. Definitely best to leave that how it's set up by default. So I may go for the management accounts here. I'll press tab again, then I can do the stage. If we want quite a lot of analysis on this, I'll just say we're doing that one. Charge rate. Now, here's probably a good moment to talk about charge rates. You can typically, people, each member of the team will have a charge rate, and that's sort of that. And if that was the case here, so like this user, Ben, has 1 charge rate. So all I would ever do is press tab and on default rate, and that's fine. But you can actually have any number of charge rates linked to any combination of user, client, workflow system, role, or office. So you can go sort of mad. You can reflect any unusual charge rate situations there. Perhaps useful if you are billing something on time and you've agreed a certain rate, you could set that up just for that client service combo, or just for that client, or just for the user, whatever. Now, if we had a special one, we'd probably have two in this drop down here. And the way that we're able to offer this default is because you can give them priority order. So you could make sure my normal charge rate is always the default, and that quirky one just for one situation is the second one. But just to stress, if we set up a special rate for Oundle engineers management accounting work, it would not be in the drop down on anything else. It does check whether it is applicable or not first. But yeah, as we are recording time there, we would see two. So yeah, there's lots you can do with charge rates should the need arise. I'll just pop in my minutes and my description. So clearly here is where we come to do lots of timesheet entries. Now, the best way to move through the columns, as I've been doing there, though I appreciate you can't see it, is just to press tab. And if you need to go backwards, press shift tab. Each time you tab one, it's looking for the relevant options in the next column. You can also press these green buttons should you wish to. You can also edit edit entries or delete entries, so long as they've not been billed, at which point you can't do anything with them, or if the timesheet had been sort of submitted, you would have to unsubmit to be able to edit them. So that feels like a good moment just to touch on submission and approval and those sorts of things. So a couple of things we're seeing on this screen. We can have, I've got here a target of 450 minutes. So we can set up workday patterns for each member of the team for each day of the week. Okay, and you can do that, and you can either have it set so that you have to record that many minutes, and you'll see here that I am lacking in my minutes, so I'm not yet able to submit. Or what some people do is they do have the contracted minutes in, but they turn off the requirement to hit them. And this is typically to support a flexi arrangement. So with our flexi recording, we don't ask people to build up the rest of the number, like i.e. here to stick in 245 minutes and then another day to minus it out. We don't do that. Just record the work you've done, and we have a report that will compare contracted to recorded hours over a period of time. Okay. Yeah, now with submission and approval, whether that is upon hitting the target or not, in glide time, that doesn't post time. As soon as I've recorded this time, we're going to see it in our client's WIP, we're going to see it available for billing, etc., etc. The submission and approval is really to allow people to carry forward some key sort of controls that you might have around timesheets in the practice. We don't want a member of the team to leave 2 weeks before they write down their time because they're going to forget what they've done. So this gives us a nice mechanism to say, look, you're actually 2 days behind on your timesheets, etc. So yeah, it's important. Also, it means they can't be edited, which I think is quite good. So people can submit their own timesheets, and then you can either use glide time in a sort of loose sense that anyone can do anything, or specifically partners and managers can do anything, or what we'd recommend is you set up permissions lists, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And then you can restrict down to specific people who can submit other people's timesheets or who can approve timesheets and that sort of thing. And in fact, every single bit of data or type of data in glide time can sit behind a permissions list. So we could block charge rates from someone or billing data from someone, etc., etc. Okay, that's enough about recording time. Those are the ways to get time in. I see a few people have joined since I started, so I just want to mention that bit at the start. We can import your opening WIP, full detail, hundreds of thousands of rows. That's all absolutely fine. You get all the detail in there. If we do that, by the way, we don't try to pin it on a job because often those jobs aren't active. We tend to set up either one or a number of categories called like ZZZ opening WIP or ZZZ opening WIP for accounts. And we analyze it. If you have the data, we analyze it to that level. We also archive those categories immediately so people can't be recording time to them. Okay, that's enough about recording time. Where does this time go? Well, if it's client time, it's going to go into our work in progress. We've built glide time. When I look at how some systems do timesheets, I think it's fair to say we've done this in quite a comprehensive fashion, or maybe a traditional fashion. I don't know what the word would be, but all of our client time goes into a work in progress valuation. And this report is the sort of go-to place to have a look at those figures as with all glide time reports, we can restrict access to this to a grouping of users. Now, this will load up one row per client. Excuse my demo system where I muck around creating clients with the same name all the time. I must tidy that up. But defaults to one row per client, but we can change that. We can have one row per job or category with client subtotals. Or if you had, say, weekly payroll jobs, you might want to go for one row per job type or category, which would group those weekly payrolls together. No matter which of these we are looking at, we get the aging analysis. We can drill into all of these numbers. We can get a PDF, which is like your traditional billing decision sort of document, if you will. And yeah, generally we can look at all of this data here in the WIP. I want to follow this straight through to billing before we sort of jump in and look at some of the other reports. So let's find that client I was recording time to a second ago. I think it was this one. And let's think about how we raise a bill. So we are a Xero partner. Glide Time's fully integrated with Xero accounting. That's our sort of key integration on this front for the time being, perhaps some others to follow in the future. But this means you have two choices for how you get your bills into Xero, into Glide, and you see where this is going. So if you need to raise a bill, so if it is a process you follow, because either it's, it's not a recurring bill, it's once a year perhaps, and you need to look at the WIP, you need to decide what you're going to bill, et cetera, et cetera. You do that in Glide, and I'll do one in a moment, and it sends it through to Xero. If, however, you have like the monthlies set up, monthly recurring bills, then leave them where they are in Xero, and they will come backwards into Glide. At this moment in time, May 22, raise the bill in Glide instant in Xero. Monthly recurring bills, which I think Xero generates sort of overnight, they will also come back into Glide once a day overnight, and they get posted at advanced time, and we'll look at that in a moment. So let's go ahead and raise a bill. Now I've got here what I think you call our version 1 of our raise bill dialog. I'm also going to give you a sort of a glimpse at a new billing screen we're building, which is going to be sort of coming out very soon, which actually has some nice new functionality into it. I haven't got it linked up into the database and everything, but I can show you that in a moment. So let's click raise bill, and let's have a think about what we're seeing here. A load of nonsensical descriptions that I've put in my software demos, but basically what we're seeing here is all of the current work in progress for both my client that I've clicked on and any linked clients. I think I'm linked to James Bond here. He's my director. So that sort of just highlights that we can do cross-billing. If we've got a director and the company, or directors and the company, that's fine. We can bill through, I guess, the company most probably. If we've got husband-wife tax returns, yeah, we can bill one or the other of them if we need to. Anything like that is fine. Now, the job we need to do here is to actually decide which bits of work in progress we are billing on this particular bill. And you need to get them ticked. You need to pick them up. The ones we've ticked will be written off, expensed as part of this bill. The rest will remain in work in progress. Now, you can, if you're doing a software demo and you've got 2 entries, you can just tick the boxes on the left. If you've just done a massive accounts job and you've got 200, you want to be gravitating towards our bulk actions here. So we have select all, write off all, and deselect all. And these allow you to do things in bulk and then maybe just untick a few or tweak from there onwards. So you'll see you have these at the bottom. That's what I call the global ones. You also have a per client select all, write off all, deselect all. So we've picked up the company here. We've left James unticked down below. And also per job, you'll see we're sort of broken out into jobs and categories. A couple of jobs there, other and travel, those are categories. We can pick up a couple of jobs. So if we're billing accounts and CT, but not the regular stuff, we can easily bulk pick those up. Once we've picked stuff up, and I should say as well, I don't have an example of an expense in here, but your expenses in WIP will also come through as course as well. Once we've picked them up, there's a number of things we could do. We could partially bill if we needed to, and leave a bit of that entry in WIP. I don't know how much that happens, out in the wild, but that's something you can do. We can write off. to sort of identify that that particular entry contributed no value. If we write off everything and click generate bill, that's how we just do a pure write-off. It won't really generate an actual bill and send it to Xero. In addition to that, we of course need to get our bill total, which has defaulted to my charge rate derived values here, the WIP balance effectively on Unrivalled Engineers. It's possible, but it's unlikely that's going to be the bill total. Let's be honest, we've probably agreed a figure with the client and we need to get it there. So we've got two choices at the moment, and this is a big thing that's changing on the new billing screen, which I'll demonstrate shortly. But we can either go through individually, like I say, maybe writing off a few, maybe changing the value on a few of these individually, if you wish, or you can just say, so I've got about 1/4 of time here. Supposing I've agreed a 2,000 bill, happy days, I've got a write on, we've done really well. I can just type in the fixed bill total, and it's going to do sort of pro rata allocation there of the time. One nice thing on the new billing screen is that the fixed bill total will be becoming like these. It's going to be per job, per category, per client. So there's a big request coming in actually. So if we know, yes, it's a £2,000 bill, but 1.5 of that is for accounts and 500 is management accounts, that's great, because then we might have performed better on one of those assignments than the other. And currently my fixed bill total here is spreading the, it might be evening out some good and bad news. Of course, you can do it the other way, you can type them in, but that's what people tend to do. So yeah, this is helping us arrive at our bill total. At all times, we can be toggling between WIP selection and line items. So I might have the example I described a moment ago. What was it? Sort of accounting services might be the 1.5. And then we might have management accounts. Okay, now there are ideas afoot on the new billing screen, sort of phase 2, to be pulling this from your fee info, where we can store data about our fees. And also, you know, to be bringing in standardized terminology as well. Right, okay, so we can do all this, and then at some point we click to generate the bill. I'm linked in with Xero, so I'm not going to bother with an invoice number. That would tell the system to use Xero's sequential numbering. So I'll go ahead and click generate bill. Hope my Xero trial hasn't run out. Let's have a look. Okay, 2,000. Let's view this on Xero. I think I authenticated just a short while ago, so great stuff. Yeah, there we are, lovely. So that comes in, and we tend to recommend you set this up so this is draft. You know, let's have a look at it, check we're happy with it, maybe tweak some bits, and then, you know, fundamentally take one of these various routes that Xero now offer to actually approve the bill. Okay, so yeah, that's how we raise a bill. Whilst we're on this bit though, let's have a quick glance at the new billing screen, which, like I say, is edging very close to being released. We're sort of broken out over 3 tabs here now, and the WIP selection has a nice summary view, which I'll show you. First of all, bill data, this is sort of as before, but we also have a lot of Xero information. So we're sort of saying, yes, don't worry, your system is connected. Now, okay, my demo here, we're not set to send invoices, but you'll see here, yes, you're set to send an invoice. It will check your settings, because you can sort of like stop that for certain client types or certain clients or whatever. So we'll basically better say, we have checked and this bill is going to go to Xero and it's going to work, which is a nice visual to have, I think. WIP selection is a really boring example here, but this is crucially very different to what we had before, because we are showing you a summary of the, you know, of the figures. If you imagine on the old one, let's go into raise bill again. We've just got James's time left now. We're straight away in the detail. And yes, you have these bulk actions, but on the new one, we're showing you a summary. So per job or category, we'll just zoom back, per job or category with a client subtotal. So if there was sort of like Unrivalled Engineers, James Bond with C2, I'll probably drop the subtotal where there is only one client, because of course it will agree to the main total. So not a fascinating example here, but you know, shows that we're in the summary view here. If you click on it, like I did a moment ago, we'll go through to actually see the detail. So this then is more like the view that we immediately went to before. We're going to see it for one. We can put in, like before, we can adjust the the minutes if we like. We can select write off, adjust the minutes, adjust the fees, etc. Okay, now what else is new? Well, here's the bit we mentioned a moment ago. This reminds me, I need to talk about advanced time, but fees, we can now type in our fixed fees overall like we could before, or per client or per job. And we've got a lot of other bulk operations as well, which are either available or not, depending upon the situation. So select all time, deselect, select and redeem all. Now this one can be key because, you know, if you've got your bills coming in from Xero, and we'll do an example of advanced time in a minute, but if you've got your bills coming in, currently having the negative balances, you know, you then needed to redeem them, that robbed you of a bit of the bulk action, automation, speed up stuff on the old billing screen. So now you'll be able to do everything you want to do very quickly. Write off all, write off and redeem. So again, write off all time, writes off everything. But what if you've got 2 advanced bills, a couple of monthly bills in there? Write off and redeem will redeem those and spread the value over the entries. So it's not writing them off, it's sort of saying, yes, we've got a couple of £100 here, let's spread it and get rid of all the WIP. So really pleased with that. Additionally, you'll notice we can actually visually see the work in progress at this moment in time. And we're going to have a filter as well to say, you know, if we're sat here on the 18th of May doing our 30th of April billing, we could just filter it to the 30th of April. But this is the WIP we've brought into the screen. You do all your stuff here, and what we're constantly updating for you is the over or under and the recovery percentage. So you can see that by job, by client, and overall. And we're not projecting, we're just calculating for you. This is the WIP carried forward, which really helps you to confirm you've done what you intended to do, you know, before you go ahead and raise the bill. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting this out in the wild, which was not too far away. The line items pretty much as before. So let's just add a few in here. We can have non-monetary ones. We can, you know, vary VAT rates. We can delete them, change the order, all sorts of things. And the generate bill button is now at the bottom, and it's constantly, whereas before it was grayed out or available, we now, if it's grayed out, tell you why it's grayed out. So here it's saying that you actually need to pick up some time or expenses, you know, to create or create new advanced time, you know, do something on the bill. Anyway, let's go back to the present, because one thing we didn't talk about on the billing screen here is actually advanced time. So advanced time has a couple of uses. Imagine we're billing a big job, big annual job maybe, and we've got £3 on the clock and we know the fee is 4,000. Well, if we just put the 4,000, if we tick everything, okay, let's change the example to be closer to these figures. You know, this is 597. Let's say we've agreed a fee of 1,200. Well, we've got a sort of 200% recovery rate there, great. But what if we know we've got 10 hours work to do at £50 an hour? We can create on any job or category advance fees. Okay, so I've got 500 there. So what that's done now is it said, okay, it's still 1,200, but I'm knocking off 500. I'll pro-rata spread the £700 or whatever it is. And the benefit of that, if we generate that bill, is that we're then left with, I need to jump to the linked person that I just did that on. Let's go and find James. Yeah, we've got the £500 now. So you can see here that this £500 is a negative figure in our work in progress. So come the end of the next month, we've done hopefully 10 hours work at £50 an hour. We can just come in here and do an allocation exercise. So you can do this when you do your next bill and just tidy it up, or you can come in and specifically say, I want to redeem that and expense off that time. And if you're not raising a bill, you get your bill to be 0 and it just allocates it, much like the write-offs. You still use the billing screen, but if it adds up to 0, we're not going to send a bill to the program 0. So yeah, advanced time is useful in that. That's probably the traditional use case for advanced time. You know, I'm getting my bill out there because the client wants it in this VAT quarter, or they want the bill or whatever, but I haven't finished doing it. The more modern example of advanced time is those bills coming in from Xero. So we can create a particular category, perhaps called, you know, Xero monthly bills. We can archive it so people can't use it for other stuff, and your negatives will build up in there. And then you can redeem those, you know, across any of your categories or even clients, as we did there. We redeemed advanced time and spent it, so to say, on another client. So it's very flexible and easy to do in that sense. So, you know, you might be building up 12 lots of £500, And every month you might redeem £200 for the bookkeeping, the management accounts, and then you're building up the balance of 300 times 12 when it comes to do the year end. Okay, right, let's think where we go to next. We've had a look at our bill in Xero. You've got these deep links everywhere, so you can view your contacts on Xero, you can view your bills on Xero, etc. Obviously, need to go back to Oundle Engineers to see the one that we just did on the invoices. There they are. Okay, so then let's move on to talk about reporting, which is an interesting and evolving part of the glide time module. So we have a number of reports in here. It's worth noting that every report has an associated permissions list, so you decide who should be able to see these things. I keep mentioning that, and I feel like I need to say that to turn that concept on, you go to advanced config settings, and somewhere in here, we will see, did it activate permissions list to view glide time reports? So put that to yes, and all of a sudden your permissions list will kick in. So, you know, where do you go and do those? Well, it's config manage staff permissions lists. And you'll see in here, there's loads of glide time ones. Mine are currently deactivated as it says, but you can drag in people or teams or whatever. Okay, let's go back to our reports. So time analysis is like a big sort of database of everything. All time entries recorded are in here. And if we want to do some quirky review of how much time have we spent on something or other, you know, if we're not seeing it elsewhere, we could come into here and do a bit of filtering. So for example, what's the activity? Is it a workflow type? Is it a non-job category? Charge rate, status, is it in WIP or is it billed? What was the user? What was the context? We've got a non-chargeable category. It's got all of our clients in there. So we could backspace and type a client to get that particular client's activity there. So this is a bit of a catch-all for reports, really. We then have a version that's just got client time in. And the reason we did that was so that you could give perhaps minimal access to this one, but give people more access to this if they're needing to look at their client's time. I think the reason for that is that non-client time can contain sensitive information if people have been unwell or anything like that. So I think from a GDPR perspective, it's good to lock that down a little bit more. It's also worth noting that every user has access to their own time analysis. They can see everything they've done with exactly the same filtering capabilities. Timesheets report, this is like the control center for have people submitted their timesheets. You know, there's always one, isn't there, that hasn't, or lots of people in the case of a demo system. So here's where we can go to edit minutes if we've made an error with the workday pattern, view the timesheet if we are part of the appropriate permissions list to do that, delete the timesheet if there's nothing on it, etc., etc. So that's that one. You can easily filter to things that are active, submitted, approved. We will be looking in the future to have sort of email reminders, so sort of automating this a bit. We don't have that just yet. Okay, and every user has their own timesheets log as well to look at theirs. Next is staff productivity report, and this is the first one actually where we have some new stuff in the works as well. So this one, what is this one doing? Well, it's telling you basically for any date range for your team, what were the contracted hours, which is derived from the workday pattern, how many did they record, of those how many were chargeable percentage, and then the average rate when it was recorded on the timesheet, the average rate for client time on the timesheet, and how much did we recover after the billing process had gone through. And then total absolute values for chargeable time and value derived post-billing. Now, one change, we've got a new one of these coming out, which is going to introduce those buttons we had on our WIP to show this per sort of job type, etc. And we're also breaking the percentage chargeable up into, oops, didn't mean to do that, up into 3 different percentages. So yes, you'll have the pure one like we've got here, bottom line, how much of your time is chargeable, but we'll also give you 2 other percentages, one that allows you to sort of allow for what you might call unpaid time. Of course it's paid, but no expectation of productivity. So we're on holiday, we're on bank holiday is probably that one. So we'll show you a percentage that excludes those. And we'll also then show you a middle one, which allows you to tick other categories as being fair game, I suppose here. So maybe things like CPD training, you know, it's like, okay, this is paid time, you could be productive, but realistically you need to do this. So it gives you 3 percentages, and that bottom one then is literally, sorry, that last one I mentioned there is literally sort of saying, of the time you were in the office, you weren't on holiday, there was nothing really going on, how much of that time did you manage to actually do some work? So a nice new one of these coming along. Client WIP analysis we've looked at already. Client profitability, this is another one that's sort of evolving in a couple of directions. So this is, date range, did we recover the fees or not? And what was the cost put onto these clients? Again, this is going to benefit soon from view per job type, view, etc., like we had on the WIP. So what time did we put onto these clients during the date range? What was the average rate we were working on them at? What was the cost of that? And then what's the value? And value is broken down between that has been billed and that is still in WIP. Because of course, if we've got a lot still in WIP, we can't be quite so sure about our recovery rates. It's not yet been subjected to a write-off or write-on. And then we see the recovery percentage here. Now, I'm going to show you in a minute one of the new ones we're working on that actually probably does the same-ish thing, but in a way people are more accustomed to, which is to review the recovery on the bills. And I'll show you that one in a minute, albeit I'll have to apologize, I don't have loads of data in my demo system. So let's in fact look at that right now. So as many of you will know, whilst we're sort of trying to help our customers solve problems, or whilst we're working on new reports that are not yet a fully fledged web page, we have the custom reports as well. Oh, help if I click on the right menu. And I've put one in here that is just really popular of late. So Build Recovery version 2. You can see we've been working on it. And what this does, I've got hardly any bills in here, haven't I? But this allows you to see, so already in Glide, you could go for Build Recovery, you can go to the billing summary. So just to introduce this one, this is all your bills. We're talking about credit notes, etc. You can see the recovery rates, over, unders, etc. This one will aggregate. So you put in a date range for your bills. So you might say, right, the bills we did last month, April, you could put in April. And you can see what was the turnover, the cost of time, cost of expenses, recovery, and write-on, write-off. Crucially here then, we can view this per bill, that's the detail, but we can aggregate it in other ways. So we can see it by client, by service, for example. Okay, again, not a very inspiring example, but we can filter this by office, we can filter it by partner, manager. And like I say, this aggregation really, when you see this in a real client's data, is what people want. I did 200,000 of bills. Oh, look, all of that work, payrolls returning a very low percentage. This service is really killing it, that sort of thing. So really looking forward to having this in the real system, let's call it. Of course, if you're using Glide Time, you haven't got this, I can paste it into your system, no problem. But looking forward to doing that, because this is currently the more bill-orientated report. And as you can see, it's just per bill. So we've now got a way of showing you this with sort of partner, manager, office, service, whatever sort of aggregation and analysis. And also for the client profitability one, the key difference then is this one's per bills. The customer we're looking at per bills. Client profitability is time recorded. So even if it's still in WIP, we've got it in here. So this was the one we did originally, but we're finding people are more accustomed to looking at the recovery on their bills, which is kind of logical, I guess. Right, let's keep going and get down to the bottom. And there's a few of those new reports. We've got a project over the summer to do a few of those sort of version 2 reports, as we're sort of calling them. Just to jump back to the billing summary, because I just want to talk, here you can drill into the bills, see all the WIP you picked up, etc., any advanced time movements, various other bits. You can also do your credit notes. So, things will go wrong at some point, and we have 2 types of credit note. We have, let's see if we can launch them both off of here. Yeah, basic and full. So a full credit note will fully reverse whatever just happened. Put time and expenses back in WIP at their original cost. It will extinguish any created advance time, unredeem any redeemed advance time, get us back exactly how we were. Basic credit note is more for that sort of someone's sort of kicked off a bit, and we've sort of kept them happy by saying they can have 100 quid back. And clearly that's not needing to go into our WIP. It's just a write-off. We can do that here. We still launch that from an invoice, and the reason for that is that we want to allocate it. All of this loss of value has to be allocated to timesheet entries to keep our reporting fully balanced, so we can penalize a particular job or category or staff member. Now with credit notes, you then come in here to push them to Xero. It's not always necessary. So say, for example, if the original invoice, I'm not quite, probably not in a situation where someone complains, this would be illogical, but if your original invoice has gone to Xero, but pre-approving it, you actually sort of void it in Xero. You can full credit note in here, and of course you don't need to send that to Xero. Where they are linked to Xero, you see the blue writing, and that's a deep link that opens up the invoice. Okay, staff actual versus core. This is simply for those people that have deactivated the need to hit the minutes and want to keep tabs on how do the contracted hours compare to the actual recorded hours over the course of a week, a month, or a custom date range. We're not a tool that's set up to be managing flexi. To be totally honest with you, don't have balances and stuff like that, but we can give the info needed to work out whether it is balancing over time. Expenses, this is just a control area for all of our expenses. Like I say, we can import these in bulk as well. As we're going down this list, I just want to briefly look at fees report, even though it's not part of the glide time module and it's a little bit off-piste. I just quickly want to intro this in case people aren't aware of it. This is where we can have if we open up Beans in a new tab, we'll see the fee info, and here you can record your fee. It's heavily related to sort of billing, isn't it? You can record your expected fees. So that might be, it's about £2,000 a year, roughly in August. And then when you get there, you do it for real. Or it might be those sort of monthly arrangements that are bang on. You just put them in once, and obviously if they change, you do need to come in and change it, but you have a frequency and a start date. And we then push that data into the query editors. So the client query editor, the jobs query editor, you could do queries, well, anything on your sort of workflow or client data, and you could output as part of that the fee values. So like the total annualized value of the client, or total annualized value for accounts work, or whatever it might be. We also leverage this in our projected billing report. So for any date range, we can see exactly what we expect you to be invoicing. Totally no need for this to be attached to job completion. This is separate data. This is when we're billing them. And if you are doing your glide time actual billing, you'll be able to compare to actual, which is quite a nice control for some people. We do plan to offer a version of this that can have up to 12 months sort of staggered across. We can filter this by service, partner manager, etc., etc. Okay, now I thought it'd be about half an hour. We're at the 45-minute mark. I'm bound to have forgotten something or other, but I think that's probably the logical point for me to say I've gone, oh, hold on. No, I knew I'd have forgotten something. Config, system options, glide time and fees. This is where we come to do things like charge rates and setting up categories. As I say, rates can be linked to lots of things. So you could have a rate that people share, just a VAT rate or something, as I've kind of got here, although I have put it against a user. Or you can have client-specific rates. I think we have a couple of clients that have a rate for each client. Not loads, but some people do. So yeah, just wanted to direct you to this page as well. But yeah, I think that's probably everything. As ever, please do feel free to ping any questions in over the Zoom chat or Q&A, or if your questions come at a later date, you know how to get hold of me, I'm sure. Lots of Glide customers in the webinar. So, via the phone, email, or the blue widget in the bottom right corner of the screen there. More than happy to help anyone who's using the system or might be considering using it in the future. So I don't know if we get any questions today, but let's hold on and see until everyone's gone. I should be waiting here, but that's probably all I have to, unless someone's going to remind me of something I've missed. That's probably the sort of content of the webinar for today completed. And like I said at the outset, for those that missed it, this has been recorded and this will go on our Vimeo or YouTube, both of those later on this afternoon or this evening. So, you can easily share it with any colleagues who might have missed it. Okay, just give it a couple more minutes in case anyone's typing out a question as we speak, and then I think we can all get back to whatever we're doing. Cool. Okay, guys. I haven't seen any chats coming in. I guess it must all make sense or no sense, one or the other. Like I say, if you want to discuss any of these things at any time, looking forward to getting the new billing screen out. You know, if you want updates on when that's coming along, do give me a shout at any time. But I think we're getting close to 10 to, so I think I will call it a day there. And, you know, thanks everyone for your time. Thanks for coming along. We're going to be doing lots more of these webinars. I find it's a really effective way of me just, you know, getting around to getting this content out there and then get it up on the YouTube, share it with everyone else as well. So I've got a few more in mind for the coming month. So yeah, cool. I'll end the meeting here. Thanks everyone very much.